Hi and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave and this is episode 1712A and today's date is November 9th, 2018, and the title of the episode is this the beginning of the end of the central bank currency system? Now, before we get started, I wanted to talk about gold. Gold has been sought after, valuable, and highly regarded for thousands of years. Gold is still considered one of the safest investments on earth. Because of this stability, the IRS lets you use gold as part of your IRA or 401k rollover. Noble Gold are specialists in this type of product and have helped thousands of folks just like you to save for a happy and comfy retirement. If you would like to join them in that, call 877-646-5347 now and talk to the experts about how to get your gold IRA started, or go to noblegoldinvestments.com and start your investment in gold today. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it looks like the plan is moving forward in every respect. And remember, the plan is not just getting rid of the deep state. The plan is not just putting people behind bars. The plan is to get rid of this entire system that is made up of corruption, treasonous individuals, and the central bank. You need to do it all, because if you don't do it all, guess what? It just happens once again, and there will be no stopping it whatsoever. And what's very interesting is we know the petrodollar system is at the heart of this system. Remember, we came off the gold standard back in the 70s, and they put us onto this petrodollar system, which is hooked to oil, where countries in the Middle East, they have to sell their oil using the dollar and allow other countries to take the dollar, put it in their reserves so they can buy the oil. Now, Saudi Arabia, they were the center of this deal. And then you have, the offshoots like Libya, Lebanon, and things like that. But Saudi Arabia, they were the main focus. And we know that they control OPEC. And it was put together to control the other nations. And all of this was done to prop up the dollar. But what's very interesting right now is that Saudi Arabia, they're talking about doing away with OPEC. Remember, they've been making deals with Russia, making deals with China, and they're talking about getting rid of OPEC altogether, which tells us that something big is about to happen with the petrodollar. They're already making plans to go in a different direction. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But I want to talk about what is happening around the world right now. Out in the UK, we see there's a huge amount of closures. A lot of the retail stores, they are closing down. On the British High Street, they suffered about 2,692 store closures in the first half of 2018. And yes, there are stores that are opening up, but the amount of stores that are closing, well, that is much, much higher than the stores that are actually opening. We also see in the United States the same thing is happening. A lot of stores are closing. Now, out in the UK, 10% of the store closures were fashion retailers. And what they're trying to say is that people rather buy their clothes online than go to the store, try them on, make sure they fit, and then purchase them, which is kind of strange, because if they don't fit, you're just paying postage back and forth, and it takes forever. So that really doesn't make that much sense. Yes, I know that people do it, but overall, people like to go to the store. They like to try on the clothes. They like to try on shoes, see how they feel, and if they feel good, that's when they purchase it. The United States, same thing. The U.S. mall vacancies, they're at a 6-year high right now in the first quarter of 2018. A lot of retail space opening up here. And then if we look at the UMich, we see, and this is the University Michigan Sentiment Gauge, we see that it has declined. Now, people thought the economy was getting better. Expectations right now, they are slipping. And if we look at the buying expectations, they slip lower across homes, autos. This is the lowest since 2013. With major appliances, this has also slipped. So people are looking at this saying, you know what, we're not going to do any of this right now. We're holding off. Again, why is this happening? Well, the Fed is raising rates. As you raise rates, guess what happens? Everything becomes very, very expensive. Pushes people out of the markets, pushes people out of the automobile market, pushes people out of the student loan market, pushes people out of the home market. The credit cards, the interest rates are going to go up there. and people are going to have a tougher time paying those back. It's all connected, and it's all starting to fall apart, and people are starting to realize this. Now, remember, the Fed right now, they think the economy is doing fantastically. Now, of course, this is part of the plan. We know the numbers are manipulated, and they're going to stay on track. They're looking to raise the rate in December. It looks like it's baked in the cake right now for December. Then they're going to raise the rates in 2019. And they're talking about a couple more times, maybe 3 more. And we know once we hit that magic number, which is going to be around mid-2019, which is going to be around 3%, well, that's when things are going to start to really, really fall apart. Now, we're going to see it fall apart all the way up to that point, but this is going to be the tipping point when the economy starts to deteriorate very, very quickly. We saw this back in 2006 going into 2007. They hit a tipping point, and they just, boom, they just dropped the interest rates, and the whole entire system started to fall apart, and it really accelerated in the year of 2008, and that's when corporations, they couldn't even make it. The housing market started falling apart. The stock market came down, and everything just imploded. But again, at that time, I believe the central bank did this on purpose because they wanted to start the next phase of their system. And what was the next phase? Well, the next phase was to allow them to create as much currency as possible, because if they were not allowed to do this, and they weren't allowed to bail out all these different businesses and the stock market and the banks and things like that, everything would have just imploded. And what they needed to do was they needed to control the entire globe. And this allowed them to create as much currency as they needed and move it along around the world to put other things in place. And they knew that this would only last a certain period of time before everything started to fall apart. And they needed some more time before the event. This way they can explain away why the entire system's falling apart. They don't have that event right now. They're running out of time. And I do believe that Powell right now with Trump, they're working together. Remember, Trump put Powell into this position. He's raising rates. He knew he was not an easy money Fed. Trump is contradicting Powell, blaming the Fed if the economy falls apart. But this is just the beginning stages. We know there's a lot of moving pieces, and there's a lot of things that have to happen. Remember, the central bank over time, they set everything up. Go back to the 70s. I mean, everything's intertwined, connected to the petrodollar. The central bank has its hands in almost everything now. But coming out of Saudi Arabia, which is very, very interesting, and this is like groundbreaking news, but no one's really talking about it. Saudi Arabia's top government-funded think tank is said to be studying the possible effects on oil markets of breaking up OPEC. The OPEC study aims to assess the short, medium-term consequences of a dissolution of OPEC. What will happen if they get rid of OPEC? And this revolves around the petrodollar system. Officials are grappling with the assumption, shared increasingly in the oil industry, that oil demand will one day peak. Well, really? Will it peak? Not too sure about that. I think what really Saudi Arabia is doing, along with other countries, they're looking at China and Russia to basically pivot away from the West and move towards Russia and China. And they've been making a lot of deals. And they're trying to figure out a way to get out of the petrodollar system. Why do they want to get rid of the petrodollar system? Because they know it is a dead end. It is coming to an end. And they don't want to be stuck in a system that is dead. So they're looking at this entire cartel, this OPEC cartel, and they're looking to make a move. And the senior government officials, they've started to question the longer-term rationale for the cartel because of the clout that Saudi Arabia and Russia alone can have on the markets. So if Saudi Arabia moves away from the petrodollar system, which they are at the center of it, everything starts to fall apart. I mean, I believe there was a movie back in the 70s called Rollover. And Saudi Arabia, they went ahead and they said, listen, we're calling in our investments, we want everything, and everything started to fall apart. The same thing's going to happen here. It looks like that everything is being prepped to move away from the central bank fiat system. And countries are getting prepared to do this because we need to remember what is going on in the Middle East here. If these Middle Eastern countries, and I'm saying if, I'm saying when these Middle Eastern countries move away from the dollar and they say, you know something, countries that are out there right now, you can use whatever currency you want to pay for oil. You can use the dollar, you can use the euro, you can use gold, you can use the ruble, you can use the yuan. We'll take them all. Guess what countries are going to do? Most of them most likely will use their own currency. Or they might look at the yuan or ruble, like Africa right now. They're saying, why are we dealing in the dollar right now? Let's deal in a different currency like the yuan, because we do a lot more business with China than we do with the United States. Now remember, the dollar, the US dollar, is a central bank currency system. It's not the people's money. So if countries move away from it, it hurts the central bank. The people, yes, we might feel a bump in the road, might be hard at first, but it will be better in the long run if we move away from the central bank currency and move on to a people's currency, which we then control it. This way we can create the currency, just like the central bank, but there's no interest attached. And that will have an effect on taxes. That means we don't need the IRS. That means a lot of things will go away. And everything will be reorganized. And this is huge right now that Saudi Arabia is thinking about doing this. When was the last time you heard Saudi Arabia say, you know something, we're thinking about breaking up OPEC? Because it doesn't seem like it's something that we want to keep around because of Russia and China. It looks like the outlook for Russia and China and Saudi Arabia linking together seems a lot better than dealing with the US. I mean, think about this for a second. So we can see the plan is moving forward, and it's one little piece at a time. Start to put all these pieces together, you're starting to see a picture here. A picture of a system without a central bank. A picture of the central bank fiat system coming to an end, and something else rising above it. The plan is moving forward. It's just a matter of time, and we can see time is ticking down right now. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.